Subscribe to the Brogan Hillman Show.
Welcome back inside the Brogan Hillman Show, and today we have a full in-depth recap on Wildcard weekend. But before we get started, Bible verse you already know, Psalm 136:1. Again, we love Psalms on the Brogan Hillman Show, and it goes, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and love endures forever." Pretty much just saying, give thanks to the Lord for loving us, for everything that we go through, everything that we do. He loves us throughout all of it. No matter what we do, no matter what we may say, no matter our actions, he loves us through all of it, and he's there with open arms waiting. This is just saying, just relax. No matter what you do, it's not saying to go out and do bad stuff, but just know if you do something bad, you sin, relax. It's not the end of the world. He still loves you. Repent from your sins, apologize, give it to God. He still loves you. He's there with open arms, and it is not the end of the world. I love you guys. Let's get straight into the full in-depth wildcard weekend. Okay, wildcard weekend started off with a blast. CJ Stroud went for 274 and 3 touchdowns and a rating near perfect of 157.2 in his first ever playoff game. We started off with history being made, the youngest player to ever win a playoff game, and just killing a Browns team that majority of America thought was going to win that game. He just goes out and proves everyone wrong, and he did it in style. I mean, Joe Flacco didn't even put up a bad stat line. Joe Flacco went 307 with a touchdown and 2 interceptions, but those 2 interceptions were the game changers because those 2 were all returned for pick sixes. That ran up 14 points right there and made it hard to get back into that game. He had a passer rating of 80.6, which isn't terrible, but those 2 interceptions is what ultimately bit them in the butt and killed them in that game. The rushing department, nothing too crazy for either teams. Jerome Ford led the Browns. He only had, 26 rush yards, so it was not a big rushing game, more of a passing game for sure. Devin Singletary had 66 yards, and that's about it for the ground game. Ground game was not the story. The story was definitely the air raid offense and the passing game. Amari Cooper went for 59 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, that's the key right there for the Browns. Amari Cooper, anytime he had a big game, the Browns had a big game. I mean, they won games in fashion when Amari Cooper had big games, and because they couldn't get him going, that ultimately was the story that killed them. Nico Collins went for 96 and a touchdown, though. He showed out when he needed to without Tank Dell, and CJ Stroud made sure to find him this game and feed his best target, and it sure paid off. Texans win that game 45-14, and CJ Stroud is the youngest player in NFL history to win a wild card game, to win a playoff game. The next game of wild card weekend was Chiefs versus the Dolphins. My Miami Dolphins, as you can tell from the backdrop, and it did not go too hot for my Miami Dolphins. The Chiefs put us out 26-7. Patrick Mahomes went for 262 and a touchdown, a rating of 83.6, which isn't even all that, but their ground game was going this game. They had a great ground game. It was very cold. It was in the negatives, so running was obviously the play in this game, and that's kind of what hurt the Dolphins because we didn't run as much. We have these playmakers that are very capable of exploding play after play, these big run carries. Raheem Mostert touched the ball 8 times, and Achane touched the ball 6. So in a very cold weather game where ground and pound is the move, we give our 2 best rushers only 14 combined carries. Of course we're not going to win that game. Of course we're not going to play where we should have played. But Isaiah Pacheco, on the other hand, touched the ball 24 times, 89 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, they just played the conditions better. They played the climate better, and they had the overall better game plan. Our coaching was very questionable. The Chiefs had great coaching. They put the ball in the end zone when they needed to. They put points on the board when they needed to, and they stepped on the gas pedal, and they took that game. They deserved to win that game by far. I mean, I feel like they had a good game. They played the conditions as best they could. Even their passing game was good. They had 8 receptions for 130 yards. Rasheed Rice did, their best target in this game, and a touchdown. So, I mean, they played well. They played it how they needed to, and they put points on the board, and they scored, and they won that game. So, I mean, it was overall very, very good outing for the Chiefs, and they're now in the divisional. They're playing against the Bills next week on the divisional. The third game of wildcard weekend was the Packers versus the Cowboys, and I would just like to start this off. Packers win 48-32, almost putting up 50 on the Cowboys. I said Jordan Love was going to come out and exceed everyone's expectations. I said Jordan Love was going to go out and get that Packers the win, and I was the only person that I saw pick the Packers in this game, and they came out on top, and they had a great time doing it. Jordan Love went for 272, 3 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 157.2. I would just like to point out, Jordan Love's stat line was 272, 3 touchdowns, and a 157.2 passer rating. CJ Stroud's stat line was 274, 3 touchdowns, and 157.2 rating. 2 first-year starters, 2 wins, 2 big wins in the wild card, and 2 pretty much identical stat lines besides from those 2 passing yards CJ Stroud had the upper hand with. Just great stuff there. Their run game wasn't bad either. 118 yards from Aaron Jones, 5.6 yards a carry. They had a great game on the run. They had a great overall game. Romeo Doubs had a career day, 151 yards and a touchdown on 6 receptions. So he averaged 12.2 yards per reception. He was having himself a day. That Packers team just clicked again, exceeded everyone's expectations just like I thought they were going to, and came out with the victory just like I thought they were going to. Do I think it will happen? Yes. honestly, I do think it will happen. I have the Packers upsetting the Cowboys in the first round of the playoffs. Great day to be a Packers fan and a great day in the playoffs for those Packers. Moving on to face the 49ers next week. The fourth game, that game right after the great Packers-Cowboys game, was the Lions-Rams. Very anticipated matchup. Matthew Stafford's return to Detroit. Jared Goff's game against his old team. A lot of headlines in this game. The first playoff win for the Lions since 1991, or is it 1993? Just historic stuff. Another historic game. Jared Goff had a great game, 277 and a touchdown, a passer rating of 121.8. Great stuff there from Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford had a really good game. He outperformed Jared Goff with a 367 yards and 2 touchdowns. The passer rating a little less at 120.9, but both quarterbacks played great. It was a shootout, great game, 1-point win for the Lions. David Montgomery really helped there with 57 rushing yards and a touchdown. Kyron Williams had 61 rush yards, but he had no touchdowns. He didn't get the ball in the end zone at all. And I feel like Puka Nacua, again, had a career game for a rookie. 181 yards and a touchdown. This was the year of the rookies. The rookies, I think, really took over this year, stepped up, elevated their games, and they're really setting the standards, setting the hopes of what rookies are going to have for the future. I mean, we saw a bunch of rookies step up, CJ Stroud, Puka Nacua, and just play career games, and they just played career seasons overall. They had the gas, they had their foot to the metal all season, just playing great, and they put up great stat lines. And this one, the Lions squeaked it out 24-23 to have their first playoff win since 1991. The fifth game of Wildcard weekend on Monday was the Bills versus the Steelers, and this one saw the Bills play a good game, win the game 31-17 over the Steelers. Not as bad of a game as I thought it was going to be for the Steelers. The Steelers played a very respectable game. They stuck with them the whole way through, and I mean, they made it for a competitive matchup. I thought it was going to be a blowout, but the Steelers stuck in the whole time, and they did not get shoved around. They didn't really, those fumbles really killed them, and they didn't look like they were too far behind the Bills. They didn't look like they were getting blown out or destroyed. They looked like they belonged there. Mason Rudolph went for 229, 2 touchdowns. He had an interception that really hurt them, though, with an 80 on the dot rating. Josh Allen, 203 and 3 touchdowns, 121.9 rating. Great stuff out of Josh Allen there. James Cook had a very good game for the Bills. They had 79 yards on 18 attempts. Jaylen Warren on the other side of the ball didn't have a terrible game. He only touched the ball, 8 times and had 38 yards off of that, so they wish they could have used him more. Pat Freiermuth was the Steelers' leading target with 76 receiving yards, and Dalton Kincaid on the other side of that, the other tight end. It was really the game of the tight ends here in Buffalo. He had 59 receiving yards with a touchdown to put the Bills up over the Steelers. I mean, a great game from both these teams. Bills led the whole way. They took the game. They clinched it. Steelers stuck with them. They didn't let them just push them around and get bullied. So big ups on the Steelers here, honestly. They played a lot more competitive game than anyone thought they would, but the Bills did get it done overall, and they're going to face the Chiefs next week in the divisional round. That's going to be a good game. Look out for that preview on this channel. And finally, the final game of Wild Card weekend, Bucks versus Eagles. Unexpected ending. Honestly, wasn't even that unexpected of an ending, but it was just the score. I said don't be surprised if the Bucks won, but the Bucks won big. They won by 23 points. They won 32-9 over the Eagles. Just insane stuff. Baker Mayfield had a career game as well. Just a bunch of career games, a bunch of people getting it done when they have to. He went 337 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rating of about 120. Great stuff we saw out of Baker Mayfield. Jalen Hurts didn't even play that bad. He had 250 and a touchdown and a rating of 100.9. No turnovers, but just wasn't enough to get it done. Rachaad White had a pretty respectable game with 72 rushing yards, 4 yards per carry. Not terrible there. DeAndre Swift didn't do much on the other hand. 34 yards with only 3.4 yards per carry. So the Bucks just outplayed them in every aspect of this game. They came out, they looked fierce, they looked like they wanted it more, and they did. I mean, they're going to face the Lions, which is going to be a very good game next week. Lions at Bucks, that's going to be a very interesting watch. I'm so excited for that game. Cade Otton led the way here for the Bucks with receiving. Again, another tight end. Cade Otton had 89 receiving yards, and he had 11.1 yards per catch. No touchdowns, didn't find the end zone, but that didn't matter. They routed the Eagles 32-9. Bucks, again, they're looking pretty good. They're in the divisional round against the Lions. Again, Bucks-Lions could be the game of the divisional besides from Bills-Chiefs next week. There's some great games. Texans-Ravens, all 4 of the games are great games. So if you guys are excited for those games, make sure to like, subscribe. I'll be covering those as well. Again, make sure to keep God number 1. Put your faith in Him with all you do. It's been the Brogan Hillman Show, and I'm out.